In this video, we're going to make some simple blue baits, from Senkos and grubs to even some ripper baits. We've already got our molds and plasol all set up, so let's start heating it up. So before we put in the microwave, I always just like to give my plasol a quick stir to ensure all the air bubbles and moisture are out. Now that it's all stirred up, it's ready to go into the microwave. Here we're working with about 4 cups of plastisol. I like to put it in the microwave for about a minute and then stir it up to make sure it's heated up thoroughly and just not at the top layer there. So I'll do this until it reaches about 350 degrees. Okay, so right here, we can see that our plastisol is about 330 degrees. So now we can add in our colorant. Today we're just using blue. Give it a quick shake before you put it in. You want to make sure you get a good amount so the color really comes out. And if you were going to add glitter or flakes into your baits, this was also when you do it, but today we're just using a blue. So right here, we're just going to keep stirring it, making sure we get the color all around. You can see right there on the spoon, or on the knife. So now we'll put this in about one more time, and then we can go ahead and put it into the mold. So now that our plastisol is around that 350, we can go ahead and get our injector here and put it into the mold. And now we'll let those sit in the mold for about 2 minutes, and then we can take them out and see how they turned out. All right, now that it's been about 2 minutes, we can go ahead and we can check our molds. So we're gonna go with the first one here. See how they turned out. So there's the first one right there. In the mold, they turned out great. So we can go ahead and take these out of the mold and throw them into a ice bath. We're gonna go ahead and check our second one here, see how these ones turned out. Yeah. Just like the first ones, these ones also turned out nice. Got that really nice blue color. That's why you want to make sure you're stirring your plastisol and letting it heat up to that 350 degrees so they can just come out with a nice color, no bubbles in them. So we're going to go ahead and check one more mold here, see how they turned out. And there we go. Just like the other two. Now one way, many people say different things. My way of getting around bubbles and dents in your bait is just stirring it properly. When you're making the baits, especially in the beginning, when you're mixing the plastisol in with the color, you can't get lazy with it. You just have to very slowly heat it up and stir your plastisol. It's very important to make sure the heat is throughout all the plastisol and just not on that surface level there. And just like that, we've got ourselves some nice 5-inch blue Senkos. Now it's very important to make sure you're stirring. As you can see in our baits, we have no bubbles, no dents or anything. And that's because of properly stirring and making sure the cups that we're using don't have any moisture in it. So a good thing to practice before you're making your baits is making sure you have a dry measuring cup before you put your plastisol in. Because once you mix the plastisol with any kind of like a little bit of water or anything, you'll have to worry about moisture problems, and that causes dents and stuff in your baits. Just like that. It's super easy once you have the plastisol and everything figured out. I'd say the hardest part is really just making sure you're storing your materials and cleaning them properly. Now, another thing that I found really helped me was giving your baits an ice bath after making them. So as soon as they come out of the mold, they're still kind of, you got to be careful with them so you don't mess up the form of them or anything. So you don't want to press on them too hard because they're still kind of setting. So you can see here, all these baits are still wet because I just took them out of the water. But once the baits come out of the mold, I take them off of the little tubes they're on, throw them in an ice bath, and I won't touch them again for 24 hours. So that 24-hour period just lets them set and make sure that your baits are going to turn out strong and durable enough. Because if you take them right out of the molds and package them, they're still going to be flimsy and they might even break in the bag. So before we move on to our next baits, we're going to make about 50 Senkos and then we'll move on to our grub and ripper bait. All right, so here we are again. You can see our baits are around that 350. So we're going to go ahead, give it a quick stir, and now we can put it in the molds. So it's been around 2 minutes, so we're going to open up our molds, see how they turned out. I'll start with this first one here. And there we go. Just like the other ones we did, no bubbles on the side or anything, and a very nice strong color. Really like that blue. We're going to go ahead and check our other ones. Just like the other ones. We're going to check our last one. I'm pretty sure this is probably the last one that turned out good. So here we can actually see there is bubbles in these worms. That's just because the plastisol was getting, the injector was running out of plastisol. So it just started shooting air into them. So these worms are going to be scrapped, unfortunately, but the other 4 turned out good, or the other 8 turned out good. And take a look. Yeah, like I said, 4 unfinished worms. That just happens when your injector runs out of plastisol. So if we had a bigger injector here, we would be able to fill out all of our molds without a problem. But that's just a problem with the injector being too small. That's not anything with the plastisol. So right there you can see a very simple bait. It's the Senko molds there from, I got all mine from Do It Molds. But right there is just a simple 5-inch Senko mold. So I'm going to finish up the rest of those, and then I will see you guys again once I get into the ripper and grub. So I just finished up making the rest of our Senkos. Now we're going to go ahead, make our grub baits, and then also our ripper baits right there. So for these baits, we're going to do the exact same thing as the Senkos. There's no different. So we just got to heat our plastisol up and inject it into the mold. Now the only thing that's different here is that our ripper mold, it has slots for just one. So we'll have to inject into every single one of these to make single baits, unlike the grub where you just have one hole for the 4 baits, or like the Senkos we just did. But it's no different. You just do the exact same thing for these. Okay, now that our plastisol is ready, we'll do the same thing we did before. Get our injector and inject the plastisol into the molds. So now we're going to do the exact same thing we did with our Senkos and just let these set in the mold. So now that we've given these time to set, we're going to go ahead and open them up. These grub molds here are one of my favorites. Oh yeah. Those actually turned out very nice. You can see the color is lighter in the tail because it's not as thick. Alright, now that we've seen our grubs, we're going to open up our ripper molds. We're going to see how these turned out. Here we can see our ripper molds. That very sharp blue. So here's a close-up of one of those ripper baits. Turned out very nice. Oh, the blue is very sharp in them, just from the amount that we put in and making sure the plastisol is properly stirred. So just like the Senkos, we're going to go ahead and throw these in an ice bath and leave them to cure for 24 hours before we package them up for orders. And just like that, that's how you make 3 different baits. So there's our Senko bait right there. That's just a 5-inch blue Senko. Here's our ripper mold that we made, or our ripper bait. And then also our grub bait. So just like that, simple process to make the baits. I'd say really the hardest part is before you even make the baits, is with the plastisol and your colorant and making sure everything is good. So comment down below what your favorite bait was and what you want to see me make in the future. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, maybe learned something. I'll see you guys in the next one.